Ever swallowed something that made you feel worse? Imagine that being the goal. Medieval people did this all the time. Number 10. Would you trust a medieval doctor? When you got sick in medieval times, your options were pretty limited. No antibiotics. No hospitals with trained staff. Just a local apothecary mixing up concoctions that might heal you or might kill you faster than your illness. The medieval apothecary was part doctor, part magician, and part shopkeeper. With their mysterious bottles of colorful liquids, dried plants hanging from the ceiling, and strange ingredients like powdered unicorn horn, actually narwhal tusk, and dragon's blood, actually tree resin, these practitioners were the pharmacists of their day. But here's the thing, medieval medicine was a wild mix of superstition, religious beliefs, ancient Greek theories, and practical plant knowledge that somehow worked together. An apothecary might prescribe you a potion containing willow bark, which contains salicylic acid, similar to aspirin, mixed with prayers to Saint Blaise and instructions to wear a specific amulet. Was it medicine or magic? In the medieval mind, there wasn't always a clear distinction. The word apothecary comes from the Latin apotheca, meaning storehouse or repository. These early pharmacists stored hundreds of ingredients in their shops, creating a one-stop health center for medieval communities. Whether you needed something for pain relief, fertility issues, or to rid yourself of evil humors, the apothecary had something brewing for you. People trusted them with their lives, literally. What should they have? Let's journey through the fascinating, sometimes terrifying world of medieval medicine to find out. Number 9. What's that smell? Life in a medieval apothecary shop. Ever walked into a place that assaulted all your senses at once? That was the medieval apothecary. Picture this, you're in a small, dimly lit shop. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the ceiling: lavender, sage, rosemary, thyme. Shelves line the walls, filled with clay jars, glass bottles, and wooden boxes containing powders, liquids, and sticky substances. The air is thick with the smell of drying plants, spices, vinegar, alcohol, and sometimes less pleasant odors from animal products. A large mortar and pestle sits on the counter, where the apothecary crushes ingredients to make medicines. There might be a small furnace in the corner for distilling alcohol or boiling preparations. Scales for precise measuring sit nearby, though precise by medieval standards left much room for error. The apothecary himself, and occasionally herself, though this was rarer, would be dressed respectably, perhaps with an apron stained from years of grinding colored substances. Education varied wildly, some trained through formal apprenticeships, others simply inherited the family business and learned as they went. Customers came from all walks of life. While the wealthy might send servants to collect remedies, common folk would visit in person, describing their symptoms in the middle of the shop for all to hear. Privacy wasn't a big concern in medieval healthcare. My humors are imbalanced, a customer might complain, or my child has a fever and spots, or even I need something to ensure my wife conceives a son. The apothecary would listen, examine, and then recommend a remedy, perhaps a powder to mix with wine, a salve to rub on the skin, or pills made from bread and medicine rolled together. Payment was often flexible coins for those who had them, but barter was common too. A farmer might trade eggs or cheese for medicine, while a blacksmith might offer services instead of payment. Beyond medicines, apothecaries sold cosmetics, perfumes, spices for cooking, candles, and sometimes sweets. They were part pharmacy, part grocery store, and part beauty counter. Their knowledge of herbs and compounds made them invaluable to communities, especially since physicians were expensive and often only available to the wealthy. But what exactly were they putting in those mysterious remedies? That's where things get really interesting. Number 8. Did they really think that would work? The theory behind medieval medicine. Ever been told to drink something disgusting because it's good for you? Medieval patients had it way worse. Medieval medicine wasn't just random guesswork, it was based on elaborate theories that had been developed over centuries. The problem? Many of these theories were completely wrong. The foundation of medieval medicine was the theory of the four humors, inherited from ancient Greek physicians like Hippocrates and Galen. According to this theory, the human body contained four essential fluids or humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Health depended on these humors being in perfect balance. Too much or too little of any humor would cause illness. Each humor was associated with certain qualities. Blood was hot and wet, phlegm was cold and wet, yellow bile was hot and dry, and black bile was cold and dry. Illnesses were diagnosed based on which humor was out of balance, and treatments were designed to restore equilibrium. This is why bloodletting, deliberately cutting a vein to drain blood, was so common. If someone had a fever hot, the medieval logic was that they had too much blood also hot, so removing some would cool them down. Makes sense, right? Except it often made patients weaker exactly when they needed strength to fight infection. Medieval medicine also relied heavily on the principle of like cures like, and its opposite, opposites cure. For instance, a cold illness might be treated with hot remedies like pepper or ginger. But sometimes a poison was treated with another poison, following like cures like. Astrological considerations were essential too. The positions of planets and stars were thought to influence different parts of the body, and they determined when it was favorable to administer certain treatments. An apothecary might refuse to prepare a heart medicine if Jupiter, which governed the heart, was in an unfavorable position. The doctrine of signatures was another fascinating belief. This theory held that God had marked plants with clues about their medicinal uses. Walnuts, which resemble tiny brains, were thought good for head ailments. Yellow plants might treat jaundice, while red ones were for blood disorders. Religion and medicine were deeply intertwined. Illness could be seen as divine punishment, and prayer was often prescribed alongside physical remedies. Saints were believed to specialize in curing certain ailments: Saint Apollonia for toothaches, Saint Blaise for throat problems. With all these competing theories, an apothecary had to be part scientist, part astrologer, part theologian, and part philosopher. Their preparations reflected this complex worldview, which explains why medieval recipes often seem bizarrely complicated to modern eyes. Now, let's look at what actually went into those mysterious bottles and jars. Number 7. What's in this stuff? The ingredients of medieval medicines. Ever swallowed something without knowing what was in it? Medieval patients did it all the time. Medieval apothecaries worked with an astonishing range of ingredients, some genuinely medicinal, others completely useless, and some downright dangerous. Their shelves contained hundreds of substances from the mundane to the exotic. Plant ingredients formed the backbone of medieval pharmacy. Herbs like sage, rosemary, mint, and thyme were locally grown and commonly used. Today, we know many of these plants do contain beneficial compounds. Willow bark containing salicylic acid, similar to aspirin, relieved pain, while foxglove containing digitalis was sometimes used for heart conditions, though dosing was dangerously imprecise. Imported spices were highly valued both as medicines and status symbols. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and pepper weren't just for cooking, they were prescribed for various ailments. Pepper might be given for cold conditions, while cloves could be used for toothaches. They do contain eugenol, a mild anesthetic still used in dental care today. Animal products featured prominently in medieval pharmacies. Some were commonplace: honey, beeswax, and various animal fats for ointments. Others were more disturbing. Crushed crab eyes, powdered fox lungs, and dried deer hearts might be prescribed. Particularly revolting to modern sensibilities was mumia, powder made from ground-up Egyptian mummies, thought to have healing properties due to their preservation. Minerals and metals were frequently used, often with toxic results. Mercury was prescribed for skin conditions and syphilis. Lead compounds appeared in cosmetics and some medicines. Antimony, arsenic, and sulfur all had medical applications. While some mineral remedies like kale and clay for digestive issues made sense, many mineral treatments slowly poisoned patients. The most expensive and exotic ingredients were reserved for wealthy patients. These included ambergris, a waxy substance from sperm whale intestines, musk from deer glands, and genuine pearls ground into powder. Most famously, unicorn horn, usually narwhal tusk, was grated into medicines as a cure for poisoning. Religious or magical ingredients were sometimes included. This might be as simple as holy water or as complex as a parchment with written prayers that was dissolved into a drink. Gemstones were believed to have healing properties: ruby for blood disorders, emerald for eyesight, and sapphire for boils and external wounds. Preservation techniques were limited, so apothecaries used alcohol, vinegar, honey, or salt to keep their ingredients from spoiling. Many medicines were prepared as needed rather than kept in stock. The exact recipes, called receipts rather than recipes, were closely guarded secrets passed down through apprenticeship or within families. Some apothecaries developed signature preparations they became famous for, bringing customers from far and wide. But how did they transform these raw ingredients into usable medicines? That's where the real alchemy began. Number 6. How did they make this stuff? Medieval pharmaceutical techniques. Ever tried to follow a recipe with vague instructions like cook until done? Medieval apothecaries dealt with this daily. Creating medicines in the medieval period was an art form combining precise techniques with frustratingly imprecise measurements. Without standardized weights and measures, instructions might call for a handful, a pinch, or, my personal favorite, enough. The most basic preparation in the medieval pharmacy was the simple herbal infusion, essentially a tea. Herbs were steeped in hot water, then strained and drunk. This method effectively extracted water-soluble compounds from plants and was used for mild remedies. For stronger medicines, apothecaries created decoctions by boiling plant materials, often roots or bark, in water for an extended period, concentrating the active ingredients. The resulting liquid would be strained and could be preserved with honey or alcohol. Tinctures involved soaking herbs in alcohol, usually wine or spirits, for weeks to extract compounds not soluble in water. The resulting liquid was filtered and stored in tightly sealed bottles. Many tinctures could last for years without spoiling. Creating pills was a messy process. Medicinal powders were mixed with a binding agent like bread, honey, or wax, then rolled into small balls that could be swallowed. For patients who couldn't handle the bitter taste of most medicines, pills were sometimes coated in slippery elm or marshmallow to make them easier to swallow. Ointments and salves combined medicinal ingredients with a base of animal fat, oil, or beeswax. These were applied externally for skin conditions, wounds, or to reduce swelling. Some ointments contained genuinely effective ingredients like comfrey, which contains allantoin, still used in skincare, or calendula, which has anti-inflammatory properties. More advanced apothecaries practiced distillation, using alembics distillation apparatus to create concentrated plant waters and alcoholic extracts. This technology, borrowed from Arabic alchemy, allowed for more potent medicines but required significant skill to use properly. The most complex preparations were theriac and mithridate, legendary cure-alls containing dozens of ingredients. Venice treacle, a famous theriac, contains 64 ingredients including opium, myrrh, and viper flesh. These elaborate compounds took days to prepare and had to age for years before reaching full potency. Quality control barely existed. Two apothecaries following the same recipe might produce wildly different results depending on their interpretation of the instructions, the quality of their ingredients, and their personal techniques. Some guild systems tried to standardize production, but variation was inevitable. Apothecaries often performed tests to verify the quality or authenticity of their ingredients. They might burn a substance to check its smell, taste a tiny amount, a risky quality control method, or observe how it reacted with other chemicals. Timing was crucial in medieval pharmacy. Many herbs were believed to have greater power when harvested at specific times: St. John's wort gathered on St. John's Day, or herbs collected during certain moon phases. Prayer and ritual might accompany the preparation of particularly important medicines. With these techniques, medieval apothecaries created a vast pharmacopoeia of remedies. But which ones actually worked? Number 5. Which medicines actually worked? Surprising successes and failures. Ever taken a remedy that did nothing at all? Medieval patients experienced the full spectrum, from miracle cures to deadly mistakes. Let's start with the successes because yes, some medieval medicines genuinely worked, even by modern standards. Willow bark tea prescribed for pain and fever contains salicylic acid, the precursor to aspirin. It genuinely reduced pain and inflammation. Similarly, meadowsweet, which contains the same compounds, was effective for headaches and joint pain. Honey was widely used on wounds, and modern research confirms its antibacterial properties. In fact, medical-grade honey is still used in some hospitals today for wound care. Garlic, another medieval staple, has proven antibacterial and antifungal properties. Foxglove, used cautiously for dropsy, fluid retention often from heart failure, contains digitalis, which remains an important heart medication today. The challenge was dosing. Too much foxglove is deadly, and the margin for error is small. Some herbal combinations showed remarkable intuition. The Four Thieves vinegar, a blend of herbs including lavender, sage, and rosemary steeped in vinegar, was believed to protect against plague. While it couldn't stop the plague, many of these herbs do have antibacterial properties that might have helped with some infections. Now for the neutral remedies, those that did neither harm nor good but might have provided psychological comfort. Many mild herbal teas fell into this category. Chamomile, mint, and lemon balm teas wouldn't cure serious conditions but could soothe symptoms and provide hydration, which is often beneficial during illness. The placebo effect likely played a huge role in medieval medicine. Elaborate preparations, rare ingredients, and the authority of the apothecary could convince patients they were receiving powerful medicine. This belief alone sometimes improved symptoms, especially for conditions influenced by stress or with fluctuating severity. Then there were the harmful treatments, remedies that caused more damage than the original ailment. Mercury, used for syphilis and skin conditions, slowly poisoned patients, causing neurological damage, kidney failure, and death. Lead compounds in cosmetics and some medicines accumulated in the body, causing chronic poisoning. Antimony, used as a purgative, could cause violent vomiting and diarrhea that sometimes proved fatal. The theory was to expel bad humors, but instead it often caused dangerous dehydration. The most famous dangerous treatment wasn't technically from apothecaries but worked alongside them: bloodletting. By weakening already sick patients, this practice likely killed countless people who might otherwise have recovered. Theriac and other complex preparations containing dozens of ingredients likely worked partly through the active compounds they contained, like opium for pain relief, and partly through the placebo effect. The expensive ingredients and complex preparation created a powerful psychological impact. Some medieval treatments worked for the wrong reasons. For instance, moldy bread was sometimes applied to wounds. We now know some molds produce antibiotics, so this might occasionally have helped, though not because of any theory the medieval practitioners had about why it should work. Perhaps most remarkable are the treatments that worked through luck and careful observation despite being based on completely incorrect theories. For example, the doctrine of signatures suggested walnuts could help brain disorders because they resemble tiny brains. While this reasoning is faulty, walnuts do contain omega-3 fatty acids beneficial for brain health. Ultimately, medieval pharmacy was a mixed bag of genuine remedies, harmless placebos, and dangerous poisons, all administered without clear knowledge of which was which. Number 4. Who were these people? The lives of medieval apothecaries. Ever wondered what it takes to become someone who mixes potions for a living? Medieval apothecaries followed diverse paths to their profession. Unlike modern pharmacists with standardized education, medieval apothecaries came to their trade through various routes. Many learned through the traditional apprenticeship system, starting around age 12 to 14 working under an established apothecary. After 7 to 10 years of training, they might become journeymen, working independently but not yet masters. In larger cities, apothecaries formed guilds, professional associations that regulated training, maintained standards, and protected members' interests. To become a master apothecary in these areas, one had to create a masterpiece, a particularly difficult preparation that demonstrated their skill and be approved by guild leadership. Women worked as apothecaries too, though with additional barriers. Most commonly, widows continued their husbands' businesses, having learned the trade through marriage. Some convents had apothecary gardens where nuns prepared medicines for their communities and sometimes the public. The social standing of apothecaries varied widely. In some regions, they were considered tradespeople, similar to butchers or bakers. In others, particularly in southern Europe, they approached the status of physicians, especially if they had university training. By the later medieval period, some universities offered formal training in pharmacy, though this wasn't yet standard. Daily life for an apothecary involved waking early to open their shop, gathering fresh herbs from their garden, preparing remedies, and serving customers. They might visit homes to deliver medicines to the wealthy or bedridden. Evening hours might be spent reading herbals or medical texts, maintaining records, or preparing complex medicines that required extended processes. The relationship between apothecaries and physicians was complicated. In theory, physicians diagnosed and prescribed, while apothecaries simply prepared medicines. In practice, many apothecaries diagnosed and recommended treatments directly to customers who couldn't afford physician fees. This created tension with the medical establishment. Some apothecaries specialized in particular preparations or treatments. Others became known for treating specific conditions successfully. Their reputations spread by word of mouth, and a trusted apothecary could build a loyal customer base spanning generations. Financial success varied dramatically. Urban apothecaries serving wealthy clientele could become quite prosperous, eventually joining the merchant class. Those in rural areas might live modestly, often supplementing their income with farming or other trades. The tools of the trade marked an apothecary's status and success. Wealthy apothecaries displayed beautiful ceramic jars, albarelli, and ornate scales. Poorer practitioners made do with wooden containers and simple equipment. Regardless of wealth, all required mortars and pestles, scales, strainers, and various containers for their preparations. Record keeping became increasingly important as the medieval period progressed. Recipe books and antidotaries contained carefully guarded formulations, while account books tracked who purchased what information that could be vital if someone claimed a medicine had harmed them. Legal regulations for apothecaries emerged gradually. By the late medieval period, many cities required apothecaries to swear oaths promising to prepare medicines exactly as prescribed by physicians, to use fresh ingredients, and not to substitute cheaper components without permission. The most successful apothecaries became trusted community figures, consulted not just for medical issues but for advice on childrearing, marital problems, and other personal matters. Their position at the intersection of science, commerce, and care gave them unique insight into their communities. Number 3, what about the dark side? Poisons and their uses. Ever wondered if that bitter-tasting medicine was actually poison? In medieval times, that concern wasn't paranoia, it was prudence. The line between medicine and poison in medieval pharmacy was frighteningly thin. Many substances used as remedies could become deadly with just a slightly increased dose. Apothecaries needed intimate knowledge of these dangers, not just to avoid accidents but sometimes to deliberately provide poisons for various purposes. Arsenic compounds were among the most notorious dual-purpose substances. In tiny amounts, arsenic was prescribed for skin conditions, fevers, and even as a general tonic. In larger doses, it was a deadly poison that produced symptoms similar to common illnesses, making it a favored tool for murderers. Aconite monkshood exemplifies the medicine-poison duality. Applied externally in carefully prepared ointments, it could relieve pain. Ingested, it caused paralysis and death. Its potency made it useful for poisoning arrows and eliminating political enemies. Hemlock, famous for killing Socrates, was occasionally used in extremely diluted forms for spasmodic conditions and pain relief. The margin between therapeutic and toxic doses was so narrow that most apothecaries avoided using it internally altogether. Belladonna, deadly nightshade, found use in beauty regimens, drops dilated women's pupils, hence belladonna, or beautiful lady, creating a wide-eyed look considered attractive. It was also used medicinally for intestinal issues, but its toxicity made it dangerous. Ironically, modern medicine still uses atropine derived from belladonna for certain eye examinations and as an antidote to some poisons. Mercury, prescribed for syphilis and skin conditions, slowly poisoned patients with chronic exposure, causing neurological damage, kidney failure, and eventually death. Yet it remained in medical use into the 20th century. We saw poisons from apothecaries. The list is disturbing. Assassins and political operatives purchased poisons to eliminate rivals. Jealous spouses used them to remove unfaithful partners or unwanted marital obligations. Some wealthy individuals slowly poisoned relatives to gain inheritance. Pest control represented a legitimate reason for purchasing poisons. Arsenic compounds were commonly used to kill rats and mice, though this legitimate use provided cover for more nefarious purposes. The same substance that eliminated vermin could be slipped into an enemy's food. Hunting required poisons too. Arrows tipped with aconite or other toxic substances ensured that even a minor wound would bring down prey. This was particularly useful for hunting larger animals that might otherwise escape after being struck. Judicial systems sometimes requested poisons for executions, though this was less common than other methods of capital punishment. Still, an apothecary might be called upon to provide a substance that would ensure a quick death for a condemned criminal. The ethical quanderies faced by medieval apothecaries around poisons were complex. Many likely suspected when customers requested certain substances for illegitimate purposes, but refusing service to powerful or dangerous clients carried its own risks. Legal regulations attempted to control poison sales, particularly in larger cities. Some jurisdictions required apothecaries to record who purchased poisonous substances and in what quantity. Others mandated that a witness be present for such transactions. Apothecaries themselves were sometimes suspected when prominent people died mysteriously. Their knowledge made them both useful and dangerous. A person who could heal could also harm. Some were indeed involved in poisoning plots, using their expertise for profit or political advantage. Detecting poisoning was difficult. Without modern toxicology, investigators relied on symptoms, timing, and circumstances. Some poisons were notorious for their effects, arsenic's garlic-like breath odor, for instance, but many mimicked natural illnesses. Antidotes existed for some poisons, though their effectiveness varied wildly. Theriac was believed to counteract most poisons, while more specific remedies included milk for corrosive poisons or induced vomiting for recently ingested toxins. Many supposed antidotes were useless or harmful. The medieval period's fascination with poisons reflected broader social anxieties about invisible threats and betrayal. The apothecary, with their mysterious knowledge and potent substances, stood at the center of these fears and fascinations. Number 2. How did people learn about herbs? Medieval plant knowledge. Ever found yourself completely lost without Google? Medieval healers memorized thousands of plants and their uses without a single search engine. The knowledge that fueled medieval pharmacy developed over centuries, transmitted through both written texts and oral traditions. This knowledge wasn't static but evolved as new plants were discovered and new uses observed. Written herbals, books describing plants and their medicinal uses, formed the backbone of formal pharmaceutical knowledge. The most influential was Dioscorides' De Materia Medica, written in the 1st century CE but still authoritative throughout the medieval period. Translated into multiple languages and extensively copied, it described hundreds of medicinal substances, mostly plants. Monastery gardens became living libraries of medicinal plants. Monasteries like St. Gall in Switzerland designed elaborate gardens specifically for growing medicinal herbs, organizing plants based on their uses or properties. These gardens served both practical and educational purposes, supplying ingredients while training new herbalists. Folk knowledge passed through generations formed another crucial knowledge stream. This practical wisdom, transmitted orally from parent to child or master to apprentice, often contained remedies proven effective through trial and error. While lacking theoretical explanations, these traditional cures sometimes worked better than those derived from classical texts. Arab influences dramatically expanded European pharmacy during the medieval period. Texts like Ibn Sina's Canon of Medicine introduced new plants, preparation methods, and theoretical frameworks. The concept of distillation, crucial for creating alcohol-based medicines, came to Europe primarily through Arabic sources. Professional secrets were jealously guarded. Master apothecaries passed special techniques or recipe modifications to their apprentices under oaths of secrecy. Family businesses maintained proprietary formulations for generations, with recipes written in code or memorized rather than written down. Practical experience trumped book learning in many cases. Apothecaries learned to identify plants in all seasons, not just when flowering, and recognized subtle variations that affected medicinal properties. They observed which preparations worked for which conditions, adjusting formulations based on results rather than rigid adherence to texts. Experimentation, though not systematic by modern standards, occurred regularly. Apothecaries tried new combinations, preparation methods, and dosages, gradually refining their remedies. This practical research was rarely documented formally, but significantly influenced practice. Travel expanded the medieval pharmacopoeia. Crusaders, pilgrims, and merchants encountered new medicinal plants abroad and brought them back to Europe. The spice trade, though primarily culinary, introduced many plants with medicinal properties that apothecaries quickly incorporated into their preparations. Plant naming created complications. Without standardized botanical nomenclature, the same plant might have dozens of local names, while one name might refer to different plants in different regions. This confusion sometimes led to dangerous substitutions when apothecaries couldn't identify a specified ingredient. Illustrations help with identification. Later medieval herbals contained increasingly accurate plant illustrations to aid identification. These botanical drawings, while still stylized, improved significantly over earlier schematic representations. Seasonal knowledge was essential for effective practice. Apothecaries knew when each plant should be harvested for maximum potency, flowers in bloom, roots in the dormant season, and so on. This timing knowledge was crucial since medicinal compounds in plants vary dramatically throughout their growth cycle. Wild harvesting required extensive expertise. Apothecaries needed to distinguish between similar-looking plants, some of which might be poisonous. They knew specific habitats where medicinal plants grew and how environmental factors affected their properties. Cultivation gradually supplemented wild collection. As certain plants became more valuable or harder to find in the wild, deliberate cultivation increased. Specialized gardening techniques developed for finicky medicinal plants, creating more reliable supply chains for important remedies. The transmission of this complex botanical knowledge required years of study and practice. An apprentice might spend a decade learning to identify, harvest, and process plants before being considered competent to practice independently. Number 1, are we still using medieval medicine today? Ever taken an herb for a health problem? You might be more medieval than you think. The legacy of medieval pharmacy surrounds us, often in ways we don't recognize. From drug development to cultural attitudes about medicine, the influence of those mysterious medieval apothecary shops continues into the 21st century. Many modern pharmaceuticals derive from plants first used medicinally in the medieval period. Digitalis from foxglove, salicylic acid from willow bark, and atropine from belladonna all began as herbal remedies before being isolated, standardized, and developed into contemporary medications. Scientists still look to historical herbal texts when researching new drug candidates. The mortar and pestle, the defining symbol of pharmacy, comes directly from medieval practice. This simple but effective tool for grinding and mixing remains in use, though now more as a symbol than a daily instrument. Similarly, the Rx symbol used on prescriptions originated from the Latin word recipe, take, which began medieval medical formulas. Certain preparation methods have survived almost unchanged. Tinctures, plant materials extracted in alcohol, remain common in herbal medicine today. Salves and ointments for external use follow principles similar to their medieval counterparts, though with purified ingredients. Modern herbalism draws heavily on medieval traditions, though filtered through scientific understanding. Many people still use chamomile for calm, mint for digestion, or elderberry for immune support, all applications documented in medieval texts. The growing interest in traditional plant remedies has sparked research confirming the efficacy of some historical treatments. Our pharmaceutical terminology reveals medieval origins. Words like drug from Middle Dutch droge for dry herbs, pharmacy from Greek via medieval practice, and even common measurement terms have medieval roots. The system of writing daily doses and Latin abbreviations BID, TID continues a medieval convention. Professional regulations for pharmacists evolved from medieval guild structures. The requirements for standardized education, practical training, and ethical practice that govern modern pharmacy began with medieval guild regulations. Even the concept of a pharmacopoeia, an official book of drug standards, originated in medieval formularies. The dark side persists too. Drug abuse, poisoning, both accidental and deliberate, and concerns about adulteration of medicines echo medieval problems. The trust we place in pharmacists to provide safe, effective medications builds on the community role of the medieval apothecary. The misconceptions also continue. The idea that natural equals safe, a common modern assumption, would have seemed strange to medieval apothecaries who were well acquainted with deadly natural toxins. Yet this belief influences how many people approach herbal supplements today. The tension between empirical knowledge, this works based on experience, and theoretical frameworks continues in modern medicine, though the theories have changed dramatically. Evidence-based medicine attempts to bridge this gap, much as the best medieval practitioners combined theoretical knowledge with practical observation. Even our cultural representations of medicine show medieval influence. The mysterious pharmacy with rows of labeled containers, the wise healer mixing precise formulations, and the symbolism surrounding pharmaceutical practice all have roots in the medieval apothecary shop. The relationship between food and medicine, emphasized in medieval health systems, is receiving renewed attention. The medieval apothecary wouldn't have drawn firm lines between culinary and medicinal herbs, a perspective many nutritionists and integrative health practitioners are revisiting. Perhaps most significantly, the holistic approach of medieval medicine, considering the whole person rather than just isolated symptoms, has reemerged as an important counterbalance to highly specialized modern healthcare. While we've rejected the humoral theory, the idea that wellness requires balance resonates with many contemporary health philosophies. This continuity doesn't mean medieval medicine was flawless, far from it. Modern pharmacy has added crucial elements: standardization, rigorous testing, scientific understanding of mechanisms, and safety protocols. Yet the foundation laid by those early practitioners remains visible in our approach to healing. As we face new medical challenges and reevaluate our relationship with traditional knowledge, the medieval apothecary offers both cautionary tales and wisdom. Their meticulous observation of plant properties, their comprehensive approach to health, and their systematic classification of remedies created a framework that, though transformed, still shapes how we treat illness today. And so we circle back to our original question: would you trust a medieval doctor? Perhaps the better question is, how much of medieval medicine are you already trusting without realizing it?